What is up, guys? Keith Jamison here with another FSI Soccer DFS Insight breakdown of tomorrow's EPL slate. I hope you all did well in Europa and Champions League this week. Certainly nice to come back to EPL where we have a lot more data and a lot more predictability in terms of just kind of some roles and things of that nature. Although we'll go into that. We have one team that can't seem to figure out their corner takers. But 4-game slate tomorrow, I will tell you, is actually a very difficult slate to build a lineup, in my opinion. Hopefully that changes based on some potential lineup shakeups that we'll get tomorrow. But without any more delay, let's just kind of get into the game. So just want to break down just a quick idea of odds. So two biggest favorites on the slate are Liverpool, which is the late game. I will be going into that. I don't think that matters too much because I don't think we'll have too many surprises from Liverpool in terms of who we want to target. But they're about a minus 238. We have Chelsea away to Bournemouth. That's a minus 135. Then Burnley, Newcastle, and Southampton, West Ham are pretty much pick-ems with both teams desperately needing a win. So with that in mind, let's kind of break down go position by position and get some ideas of where we're going to go. So first off at forward, forward and midfield are both actually very difficult to build on. If I could have 5 defenders this late, I would. Salah and Mane obviously are the two highest goal scoring odds on the slate, but they are pricey. As you build, they are really difficult to get in there. Additionally, I'm not like a big like let's overdo the log person, but without a goal, Salah, really doesn't have too much of a floor. Like, it's fair to maybe use this Norwich game as his floor. No goal, but 4 shots, only 1 got on target, 2 shots assisted, got him around 9 points. He doesn't have corners anymore. Liverpool are not a huge crossing team from the wings. They are from their fullbacks, but not from their wings. So at 11-1, you're paying for a goal. I don't think Watford is just going to lay down. I think that game could actually end up being a little bit closer on the scoreboard than we expect, although Liverpool may dominate possession. Same goes for Mane. I probably prefer to save the 800 with him. But in cash, which is where we're primarily talking about, I don't think you're going to land on either. Firmino is never a cash play for me. But great as link-up play. Always can nab a goal, but tough to pay 9K for. So Dwight McNeil is coming off his absolute ceiling game. He was one of the guys that was deciding between last week. So, of course, he had a ceiling when I decided that 10 DK from him I could get elsewhere. So that was awesome. So Newcastle concedes the most crosses in the EPL, which is great for McNeil, who plays out wide. I really don't want to look at his last game where he scored a goal or assist in terms of taking those in. So take out about 10 for the goal, 6 for the assist, and you have about 16 DK, which is a phenomenal floor game for him. Arsenal, if you saw that game, he was just crossing everything in, scored about 21. So it's very fair to put him in that 12 to 14 point floor versus a Newcastle team that just loves to bunker. 8,700 is really difficult, but I think you may be getting down to a situation where you're deciding between him and Willian, who's the next person I'm going to highlight. Chelsea sets are the team I was mentioning that just are absolutely a mess. So Reece James has been taking a lot of the corners recently. Willian did take one when he came on in the previous EPL match. Mount, we saw it split with James in the Champions League. We've seen logs where Pedro even took some. So it really depends on lineup. If Willian is in, I think that decision between Willian and McNeil, if you are even there, I have a construction where I can get there and then another one where I cannot. But if you're there, he does give you probably close to a double-digit floor. Just due to the matchup, Bournemouth is just a really bad defensive team. They badly just need points, so I do wonder if Eddie Howe finally decides to just kind of get more defensive and try to hit Chelsea on a counter. But Willian definitely in play. Danny Ingsmore in GPP. I don't see a route that away to West Ham, despite their struggles, that you could take him in a cash lineup. From there, we kind of go through just a lot of so-so plays. Oxlade-Chamberlain could start for Liverpool, but I don't think that you can bank on it. And even so, he plays in that midfield three, more than likely. And at 7,400, just really not much of a floor. So Mikel Antonio is actually going to be one of my locks, interestingly enough. So lately, let's pull it up in his last three. So it's really hard to count your City game for much of anything at all, even though he did get 4.4. City just absolutely dominated West Ham at the Etihad. But at Liverpool, Antonio still got 7 crosses in, despite Liverpool dominating the game in 7.7 DK points, which is fantastic. Versus Brighton without a goal, 14.6 DK. If you ever watch, even when he plays up top as like a striker, he has no problem drifting out wide, crossing in balls, draws fouls, shoots pretty much anytime he gets an opening. So he's really kind of a DFS player's dream, and at 6,900 in a game West Ham has to have. If he's in there, his price just fits a ton of builds. I think gives you close to that double-digit floor with goal upside. So I definitely recommend to get Antonio into your lineups. Scroll down. I mean, it'll be really interesting if we could, if like Pedro does start for Chelsea. Abraham's back to fitness, so I don't think we'll see Giroud start, but Pedro would be interesting at 6,400. Ismail Assar, terrible matchup, but he's just an absolutely fantastic DFS play. So before getting hurt versus Man U, 17.3 DK versus Tottenham with no goal or assist, versus Bournemouth with an assist, 14.2, versus Wolves with an assist, 13.2, versus Villa with a goal, 27.7. So yeah, you have a very good chance of getting, versus Liverpool, maybe 6 to 8, and for 6,100, that's doable, and that can definitely still get you into cash line. Haller, if he starts, probably more GPP, although I do think it's a solid GPP look at 5,700. Callum Wilson, probably again a GPP look, but at 5,300, that's fringe cash. If you don't, I kind of mentioned the McNeil Willian being one pivot. I think the other pivot, if you kind of come all the way down here, is doing like a Miguel Almiron or a Josh King. So I'm not an Almiron guy typically, but I do think the matchup and the price are right on this slate. If we kind of look at in similar matchups at home, because Newcastle home and Newcastle away are two different teams. But at home, 9.1 versus Norwich, 60K versus Chelsea, and Miguel Almiron has 2 goals, 1 assist this season, so I can pretty safely say don't worry about the goal or assist on this. At home versus Leicester, 40K, not so good, but at home versus Everton, 7.9, versus Crystal Palace at 18.1, that one was the goal. So 5,200, I do think he'll be popular. Josh King played out wide for Bournemouth versus, who was it versus? It was versus Burnley, at Burnley, 8.5 DK. He actually was crossing the ball, sets up shot. He does have PK duty for Bournemouth too, so very much in play, especially at 4,700. All right, midfield does us no sort of favors either. We go up to the top, we still see our Liverpool guys there. Snodgrass, he's not taking a monopoly sets for West Ham anymore. At 8,800, I would need all of those on this slate. Split with Cresswell. Felipe Anderson's back on the side versus Liverpool and actually took some corners, so kind of difficult to pay up for that. James Ward-Prowse, so very important to watch where he's lined up. So when he's lined up as a right back, 8,100 away is pretty brutal. And he split sets with Bertrand. They don't have him sprint all the way across the field to do that. When he's in the midfield, though, if you actually notice, he will sprint across the field and take a majority, if not all, of the sets. 8,100 is okay. He is on PK duty, too. 8,100 is okay, but I don't know. I don't think you land there. Mason Mount, fine at 8K if you knew that he was taking all the sets. Recent evidence shows us that he is most likely not, so I don't see how you spend 8K for him. Ryan Frazier, I am scared of the matchup. 7,600 is actually very okay for Frazier. I do think he comes back in the starting lineup, but 7,600, it's tough. Scroll down to Ashley Westwood, 6,700. That's really funny. Half the sets for Burnley, but my God, you are paying a lot for corners. Now you look at his logs, 13.2, 19.3, 11.6. That's fantastic, and his first Newcastle, so it should be great. But you literally are getting corners from Westwood, a random occasional goal. I just think it's too steep. I'd much rather go for something with a little more upside. See down the list. I would love if Alan St. Maxim was a lot cheaper. 6,500 is difficult, but as a GPP play, I definitely can see throwing him in. Felipe Anderson, 5,700. So it's funny to think about a year ago when we would probably be paying, trying to think back, but what, 7,500, 8,500 for him, down at 57. He's a really, really talented player, a lot of skill, a lot of technical ability, but just had an absolutely terrible season. Be interesting if he's back in the side at 5,700. I do have interest, especially that he took 2 corners last week. Let me scroll down a little more. So the player I'm going to go ahead and make for the lock, but it's going to be lineup dependent, is Sean Longstaff. So Lazaro lost his mind and got a red card with pretty much no time left last week. So he's suspended, was taking all the sets. The other set taker is Matt Ritchie, but he's lost his place in the side for Danny Rose, who the team obviously likes more defensively as an actual left back versus Ritchie, who was a converted midfield playing left back. I don't think Ritchie is in. We probably will know later today, based on press conferences, and obviously we won't know until 9 a.m. tomorrow. But if there's no Ritchie, no Lazaro because of suspension, Longstaff is the most likely player to be on sets. Even without any sort of set responsibility, the last 2 weeks we had 9 and 8.1 DK. Away to Crystal Palace, where Newcastle was surprisingly dominated, and away to Arsenal, where Newcastle was very dominated. If you go back to when he was taking some sets, let me find you a couple of logs there. It's not going to show up on here. But, you got close to a double-digit floor, and at 5,100, again, Newcastle at home is a lot different than Newcastle away, and Burnley isn't exactly a team I could expect to dominate possession. I think he's a really solid play in that mid-tier. A couple other plays just to bring up. Kovacic, defensive midfield for Chelsea, but it's actually been playing great, even if you look at mid and with Bayern. He was in that 6 to 8 range for 4,400. I could see you getting there. Højbjerg, great player, former Bayern player that's been Southampton for a couple of years now. Shows up with a lot of 5, 6, 7, 8 DK games. 4,100, that would definitely fit the bill. The one I will highlight that is in the late game, which will scare some people, but Will Hughes has been taking almost all the corners for Watford. Watford get, I believe it's the least amount of corners in the EPL, and it's Liverpool, but at 3,700 he gets very involved in tackles, gets some fouls drawn, will probably get a yellow card, but 3,700, if you get 5 to 7 DK, you should be pretty happy. Last one to mention, Andrew Sermon, for some reason, took 2 or 3 corners for Bournemouth last week. I don't think you chase that, but if you do, that's fine, whatever. I'll take Hughes. But let's go back down to defender. My apologies on that scroll. All right, so your third lock for this video and for this preview pod is Alexander-Arnold. He has probably the third, I'm trying to think in my head, second or third best floor in EPL. Probably go De Bruyne, Madison, Grealish, Alexander-Arnold. There's someone in that order. But coming off absolutely stupid 41 DK last week versus West Ham with 2 assists. But before that, 21.3, 10.8, 13.3, 16.1, 19.1, 10, 18, 15. So 9,200, I hope scares people off as a defender, but if he was in midfield, what would he be? 10.5, 11K. So at 9,200, all he's doing is finally getting close to an efficient price for what he does. Now, he does not take a monopoly of Liverpool sets anymore. Robertson's been taking over on the left, just again, so Alexander-Arnold doesn't have to sprint all the way over. But what you will notice if the game's a lot tighter and it's just a corner later in the game that is really important, Alexander-Arnold will still go over there because his delivery is better. But I really do think Watford will bunker in, and a TAA 15 cross game is very in play. He also takes free kicks, where he's kind of overdue actually to score from one. Robertson, like I mentioned, should very much be in your cash pool. Half the corners for Liverpool, and very willing crosser in the open play. Reece James, another defender I love. Not only is he just a great open field crosser, but also has some corners. Alonso, after that red card midweek, I don't know if we'll see him for a while, despite not being suspended for tomorrow. Richie, if he's in, he probably becomes my lock over Longstaff. He would just jump on all Newcastle sets, and 5,500 is very efficiently priced. Bertrand, I guess, is fine at 53. I think it's a little steep for the slate, but if Ward-Prowse is at right back, Bertrand at left back, you guys share sets. I would rather pay 4,700 for Cresswell, who most likely has half the sets for West Ham. Azpilicueta, if you do see him starting at wingback, I guess is okay. I don't like when he starts on the left, however. He's very right-footed, so when he gets the ball down to the byline, he actually has to stop and cut back in order to cross it, which just lowers his floor. But I do think he's okay. Diego Rico, 4,400 is a solid price. I'm trying to see anybody else here that jumps out. Danny Rose, 3,900. I have no problem with if you land there. And I don't see any other fullbacks. One just kind of a GPP mention that I'll bring up. So Liverpool this season have 11 free kick goals or goals off of sets. Watford, for tomorrow's slate, has conceded more goals off of sets than the other team at 10. So where is Van Dijk? So we got Van Dijk is actually a disgusting 4,700. But I mean, if you want a 2%, 3% goal, maybe do something like correlate Alisson, Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, and Robertson. It's just like an ultimate clean sheet for Liverpool. A 1-0 type game, the goal off the set piece. I could see crazier. I just think it's something to think about. I don't go over goalie. I would just mention, once again, Newcastle. A much different team away from home and at home. They allow the most shots in the EPL, which also gives you a really, really solid floor for your goalie. And Burnley, not exactly a team. So I do think Dubravka will probably be the chalk goalie. Pick as you want. With that said, that's going to wrap it up for my EPL preview. Again, I'm Keith Jamison with Fantasy Sports Insight. If you're interested in getting coverage for all slates, including my core plays, after we get lineups, my diagrams explaining who's in cash, who's in GPP, who's going to be on sets, and just as well as full chat, again, for every soccer slate both DK and FanDuel cover, go to the link at the bottom, FSIDFS.com. Subscribe for as low as $3 a day, $10 a week. Or if you want all of our sports VIP coverages, start at $6 a day or $20 a week. We'd love to have you aboard. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.